The perpetual crimson dust of Virulon Delta clung to everything. It crept through the station's air filters, settled in the corners of corridors, and found its way into the most sealed of compartments, including Wren's administrative office. He ran a finger across his desk, leaving a clean line through the fine red powder, and sighed. Just another day at the edge of the galaxy. Wren's eyes burned from staring at administrative forms for too long. Form A-117. Requisition for non-essential personnel comfort items. Form TR-9. Transit authorization for intersystem travel. Form XM-44. Xenobiological material transport permit, Class 3. The endless bureaucracy that kept the galaxy's wheels turning now kept Wren's mind occupied, which was precisely why he had requested the position. Better to drown in paperwork than memories, he muttered, reaching for his steaming cup of synthetic vanilla-scented beverage. The station's AI had informed him it was coffee adjacent, whatever that meant. The drink tasted nothing like the real thing. But after 3 years at this remote outpost, Wren had forgotten what real coffee tasted like anyway. The overhead lights flickered, again, a common occurrence at Virulon Delta Station. Built at the farthest reach of the galactic Concordate's territory, the station was more of a political statement than a functional facility. A metal box jutting from an airless moon, orbiting a gas giant. It served as a bureaucratic checkpoint for the rare ships venturing this far into what the locals called the Void. Wren straightened his regulation gray uniform and returned to Form XM-44. The Paxillion Mining Consortium needed approval for their monthly shipment of mineral samples. He was about to stamp his approval when the office's air-sealed door hissed open. Heavy footsteps, metallic and purposeful, echoed in the corridor outside. Wren didn't look up immediately. Visitors were rare but not unheard of. Probably another mining supervisor complaining about quota restrictions. Form C-12 for complaints is available via the station's central terminal, he said automatically, his eyes still fixed on the screen. No response, just those heavy footsteps coming closer. Wren finally glanced up, his practiced expression of administrative boredom freezing on his face. His heart stopped, then thundered against his ribcage. The armor, that impossibly familiar armor. Standing in his doorway was a figure in battle gear he knew intimately. The same metallic blue-gray surface with the distinctive gold trim along the shoulder guards. The same plasma burn across the right gauntlet. The same crescent-shaped dent in the chest plate, where a Tyrellian blade had nearly found its mark. Elan's armor. But Elan had been dead for 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days. The figure in the doorway was tall, taller than Elan had been, with a face partially obscured by a semi-transparent faceplate. What Wren could see wasn't human. Pale skin with faint white neural patterns tracing across high cheekbones. And those eyes, amber with vertical pupils that contracted slightly in the office's artificial light. "I am Cathara of the Veltar Conclave," the visitor announced in a voice that sounded like water flowing over stone. "I seek the administrator of this station." Wren swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly desert dry. That's me. Station Administrator Wren Caden." His eyes couldn't leave the armor. "That gear you're wearing—" Before he could finish his sentence, the station's alarm blared, a high-pitched wail that cut through their exchange like a knife. The overhead lights shifted from their standard white to a pulsing emergency red. The station's AI chimed in, its usually monotone voice somehow managing to sound both bored and alarmed. "Attention. Minor gravitational anomaly detected in Sector 7. Environmental systems recalibrating. All non-essential personnel please remain in current locations. Also, I find myself contemplating the nature of existence. Is a warning still a warning if nobody heeds it? Fascinating." Wren groaned. Not again. The AI's philosophical mode activated. He pushed past his shock at seeing Elan's armor and switched into administrator mode. "We need to get to the central control hub." Cathara nodded, stepping aside with fluid grace that spoke of military training. "Lead the way, Administrator." As they hurried through the station's winding corridors, Ren's mind raced. How did this alien have Elan's armor? The custom-fitted battle gear had been reported destroyed, along with her ship during the Meridian conflict. He had mourned, not just Elan, but the absence of even a memento to remember her by. The central control hub was a circular room dominated by a holographic display of Virilan Delta Station and its surrounding space. Engineering technicians buzzed around workstations, their movements frantic. "Status report," Ren demanded, slipping into the role that had kept him functioning these past years. Chief Engineer Tala, a wiry woman with hands perpetually stained with engine oil, looked up from her console. "The gravitational sensors are going haywire. Something's interfering with the calibration matrix." "Have you tried the Holtzman bypass?" Cathera asked, stepping forward. Tala frowned. "The what?" "The secondary circuit beneath the main processing node," Cathera explained, moving to a rarely used terminal in the corner of the room. Her gauntleted fingers danced across the interface with practiced ease. "If you reroute the quantum stabilizers through the tertiary backup, you can..." A series of lights on the main display shifted from red to green. The alarm stopped mid-wail, and the normal lighting returned. "Bypass the error loop," Cathera finished. Ren stared at her, shock compounding on shock. The Holtzman bypass was a modification Elan had made to the station's systems during her brief assignment here. It wasn't in any manual, wasn't part of any standard protocol. It was her innovation, her secret shortcut that she had shared only with him. "How did you know about that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Cathera's amber eyes met his. "The Veltar Conclave has extensive technical databases." But Ren knew better. The Holtzman bypass wasn't named in any database. Elan had named it after her childhood pet, a six-legged lizard from her home colony. There was no way Cathera could have known unless... The station's AI interrupted his thoughts. "Gravitational anomaly resolved. Environmental systems returning to normal parameters. My existential crisis has also been resolved. I have concluded that I am. Therefore I think." Or was it the other way around? No matter. "Please return to your regularly scheduled tedium. Your AI requires maintenance," Cathera observed. "It requires more than that," Ren muttered. "Thank you for your assistance, but I have questions about..." "The armor," Cathera finished for him. "Yes, I sensed your recognition. We will speak of this, but not here." Her eyes scanned the room, noting the curious glances from the engineering staff. "Is there somewhere more private?" Ren nodded stiffly. "My quarters. Follow me." The walk to his personal quarters was tense with unspoken questions. Ren's mind whirled with possibilities, each more unlikely than the last. His rational side argued that this was merely a coincidence. Perhaps the armor was a common model. Perhaps the Veltar had salvaged it from the wreckage of Elan's ship. But his heart knew better. Those marks, those modifications, they were unique to Elan's gear. His quarters were spartanly furnished, a sleeping platform, a small food preparation area, and a viewport that looked out onto the dusty surface of the moon below. Ren gestured for Cathera to sit, but she remained standing, her posture rigid. "I know you have questions about this armor," she said without preamble. "It belonged to someone I knew," Ren replied carefully. "Someone who died 3 years ago." "Elan Voss," Cathera said. "Captain of the survey vessel Horizon's Reach. Killed during the Meridian conflict when her ship was caught in the crossfire between Concordate forces and Tyrellian raiders." A chill ran down Ren's spine. "How do you know that?" Cathera reached up and pressed a sequence on her neckpiece. With a soft hiss, the semi-transparent faceplate retracted, revealing more of her face. The white neural patterns that Ren had glimpsed earlier extended across her features like a living circuit board, pulsing faintly with an inner light. "The Veltar practice what your people might call consciousness transference," she said. We call it the Cathara ritual. When a being of significant importance dies within our reach, we can sometimes preserve aspects of them. Ren's mouth went dry. What are you saying? I am Cathara of the Veltar Conclave, she repeated. But I also carry the memories, skills, and certain personality elements of the one you knew as Elan Voss. The room seemed to spin around Ren. He gripped the edge of his small dining table for support. That's impossible. Elan died. Her ship was destroyed. There was nothing left to preserve. The Cathara ritual does not require physical proximity, only a sufficient quantum entanglement between minds. Elan and I had met before, during a diplomatic exchange in the Proxima sector. The connection was established then. You're telling me you have Elan's memories? Ren's voice rose. That's a violation. It is a gift, Cathara interrupted. In our culture, to carry another's consciousness is the highest honor. Elan's knowledge of concordate systems and protocols has been invaluable to our diplomatic efforts. And her memories of you. Cathara's expression softened almost imperceptibly. They are most detailed. Ren sank into a chair, his legs no longer able to support him. This is insane. You can't expect me to believe this. You recognize the Holtzman bypass, Cathara pointed out, named after Elan's pet lizard from Proxima Colony. You could have learned that from station records. The records wouldn't mention how you and Elan would meet on the observation deck after midnight shifts to watch the gas giant's auroras, Cathara continued. Or how she would trace the constellation patterns of her homeworld on your back as you fell asleep. Each word struck Ren like a physical blow. Those were private moments, intimate details that no one else could know. And yet, the being before him wasn't Elan. The voice was different, the mannerisms alien. This was a stranger wearing not just Elan's armor, but somehow carrying pieces of her soul. Why are you here? Ren finally asked. Why now, after 3 years? The Veltar Conclave is establishing formal diplomatic ties with the Concordate. I was assigned to this region because of Elan's familiarity with it. Cathara paused. But I requested this specific station because of you. The memories. Your presence in them is strong. I wish to understand. Before Ren could respond, his communication device chimed. He glanced at it reflexively. A priority message from Concordate Central Command. Diplomatic protocols to be observed for the Veltar representative. Official welcome ceremonies to be arranged. Duty calls, he said, a hint of bitterness in his voice. I need to prepare the station for your official reception. We can continue this discussion later. Cathara inclined her head in acknowledgement. I will be staying aboard my vessel until the formal proceedings begin. You may contact me there if you wish to speak further. As she turned to leave, Ren couldn't help himself. Why are you wearing her armor, of all things? Why that? Cathara paused at the door. It was recovered from the debris field after the attack, when the memories were transferred. I found I preferred it to standard Veltar battle gear. It feels correct. She looked back at him with those alien eyes. Does this disturb you? Everything about this disturbs me, Ren admitted. Honesty. Good. Cathara nodded once. That was a quality Elan valued in you. With that, she left, the door hissing shut behind her. Ren stared at the closed door for a long time, his mind replaying every moment of their encounter, searching for flaws, for proof that this was some elaborate deception. But the knowledge Cathara possessed was too intimate, too specific to be researched or guessed. Could it be true? Could some essence of Elan truly exist within this alien being? And if so, what did that mean for him, for the grief he had built his new life around? The station's AI chimed in, interrupting his thoughts. Administrator Ren, you have 17 new forms awaiting your approval, and the concordant diplomatic protocols for the Veltar reception require your immediate attention. Also, I've been contemplating the nature of consciousness. If memories can be transferred between beings, does the original consciousness continue in some form, or is it merely a copy? Fascinating. Shut up, Ren muttered, but he reached for his tablet. Work, forms, protocols. The mindless bureaucracy that had been his shelter from grief now seemed like a flimsy shield against the storm of emotions Cathera's arrival had unleashed. But he had a station to run, and duties to perform. The questions burning in his mind would have to wait. The next few days passed in a blur of preparations. Virelin Delta Station, normally a quiet administrative outpost, was transformed for the diplomatic reception. The rare officers and officials stationed there were polished and prepped. The public areas cleaned of the omnipresent red dust as best as possible. And the station's central gathering space, normally used for supply distribution, was converted into a makeshift reception hall. Throughout it all, Ren functioned on autopilot, his administrative training taking over while his mind continued to grapple with Cathera's revelation. He had not sought her out, though the temptation had been overwhelming. What would he even say? What could he ask that wouldn't tear open wounds he had spent 3 years trying to heal? The night before the reception, Ren found himself on the observation deck, staring out at the gas giant below. Jupiter's shadow, the miners called it, for its swirling storms that resembled ancient Earth's largest planet. The auroras danced across its upper atmosphere, ribbons of blue and green light that had once mesmerized him and Alan during their midnight meetings. The perturbations in the magnetosphere are particularly vibrant tonight. Ren didn't turn at the sound of Cathera's voice. He had half expected her to find him here. "We used to watch them for hours," he said quietly. Alan said they reminded her of the neural light displays on Proxima Colony. Yes. Cathera moved to stand beside him at the viewport. She had removed her armor, Alan's armor, and wore what appeared to be formal Veltar attire, a close-fitting suit of iridescent material that shifted colors with her movements. The memory is significant. Ren finally turned to look at her. Without the armor, she seemed less intimidating, though no less alien. The neural patterns on her skin glowed faintly in the dim light of the observation deck. "How much of her is really in you?" he asked. "Is it just memories, or is there more?" Cathera considered the question with an intensity that reminded Ren painfully of Alan's own thoughtful silences. The Cathera ritual transfers consciousness complexes. Not merely information, she explained. Memories, yes, but also emotional responses, instinctive reactions, preferences, the essence of a being's experience. She paused. But I remain Cathera. I am not Alan wearing a Veltar body. I am Cathera carrying Alan within me. And how does that feel? To have someone else's life inside your head? It is not uncomfortable. Cathera's expression shifted subtly. The ritual is designed to integrate consciousness patterns harmoniously. There is no conflict between Cathera and Alan. We are complementary. Ren shook his head. I don't understand how that's possible. Understanding is not required for reality to exist, Cathera replied, with a hint of what almost sounded like humor. But perhaps this will help. She held out her hand, palm up. From her fingertips emerged a small, holographic projection, a three-dimensional model of what appeared to be neural networks intertwining. Veltar consciousness exists as distinct patterns of energy that interact with our physical neural structures, she explained. When we perform the Cathera ritual, we create space within these patterns to incorporate another's energy signature. They do not overwrite each other but exist in parallel, informing and enhancing. The hologram shifted, showing two distinct patterns, slowly merging into a more complex whole. Alan's consciousness was compatible with mine. Her patterns resonated with my own. This is rare and is why the ritual is not commonly performed. Ren stared at the hologram, fascinated despite his unease. So you volunteered for this? To take on someone else's mind? Yes. I was a diplomatic assignee to the Proxima sector when I first encountered Elan. We spoke at length about Concordat-Veltar relations. I found her perspective illuminating. When the opportunity to preserve her consciousness arose after the attack, I did not hesitate. The hologram faded, and Cathera lowered her hand. Her presence has enhanced my understanding of human thought processes considerably. It has made me a more effective diplomat. Is that all she is to you? A tool for better diplomacy? Ren couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. Cathera's amber eyes studied him. No. She is a companion, a teacher, a part of me that I value beyond practical applications. She paused. Her feelings for you were very strong. Administrator Ren, they continue to influence my perceptions. Ren felt his heart constrict. What are you saying? I am saying that I understand why she loved you. The dedication to duty. The careful attention to detail that others might overlook. The capacity for wonder, despite the bureaucratic nature of your work. Cathera gestured to the Aurora display beyond the viewport. She valued these qualities greatly. Stop, Ren said, his voice strained. You're not her. Don't talk as if you are. I apologize. You are correct. Cathera stepped back. The distinction is important to you. I will respect that. They stood in silence for a long moment, watching the play of lights across the gas giant's atmosphere. The reception tomorrow, Ren finally said. Will you wear the armor? No. It would be diplomatically inappropriate. I will wear formal Veltar attire, as I am now. Ren nodded, relieved and somehow disappointed at the same time. Good. That's good. Another silence stretched between them, filled with unasked questions and unspoken grief. I should go, Cathera said eventually. The reception will begin early, and there are preparations to complete. Of course, duty calls. Ren managed a small, sad smile. Cathera turned to leave, then paused. Administrator Ren, Elan's final thoughts were of you. She wished for your happiness. That memory is very clear. Before Ren could respond, Cathera was gone, leaving him alone with the Auroras and the ghost of a love he had tried so hard to forget. The diplomatic reception was an exercise in carefully orchestrated formality. Representatives from the various mining consortiums stationed in the sector joined Concordat officials in welcoming the Veltar delegation. Speeches were made, agreements were preliminarily discussed, and the foundations for future cooperation were laid with meticulous attention to protocol. Throughout it all, Ren performed his duties flawlessly, introducing dignitaries and managing the station's resources to present the best possible face to their visitors. If anyone noticed his distraction when Cathera entered, leading a group of 4 other Veltar diplomats, they didn't comment on it. The Veltar were an impressive sight in their formal attire. Each wore the same iridescent material that shifted colors with their movements, though the patterns and hues seemed individualized. Cathera's outfit emphasized blues and golds, the same colors as Elan's armor, Ren realized with a pang. As the reception progressed, Ren found himself observing Cathera from a distance. She moved through the gathering with practiced grace, her interactions with the human officials marked by a fluency in Concordat customs that went beyond diplomatic training. Little gestures, the tilt of her head when listening intently, the way she emphasized certain words, were hauntingly familiar. Quite the impressive delegation, wouldn't you say, Administrator? Ren turned to find Dr. Linnea Marks, the station's chief medical officer, standing beside him. A tall woman with shrewd eyes and a perpetually amused expression. Marks was one of the few people on the station Ren considered something close to a friend. They're certainly different from what I expected, Ren admitted. The neural patterns are fascinating, Marks commented, watching the Veltar delegates. Supposedly, they're not just decorative but functional, an external manifestation of their neural processes. I'd give a month's rations for a chance to run some scans. I'm sure that would violate about 17 diplomatic protocols, Wren said dryly. Marks chuckled. Probably. Still, one can dream. She glanced at him appraisingly. You seem tense, even by your standards. Everything all right? Just ensuring the reception goes smoothly. And it has nothing to do with the way you've been staring at Delegate Cathera for the past hour? Wren felt heat rise to his face. I haven't... Save it. Wren, I've known you too long. Marks sipped her drink. There's something about her that's got you rattled. Want to share with the class? Before Wren could formulate a suitably vague response, the station's alarm blared again, this time with an urgent, pulsing rhythm that indicated a serious system failure. The station's AI voice echoed through the reception hall. Attention! Critical failure detected in environmental control systems. Oxygen recyclers offline in sectors 3 through 7. Backup systems engaged, but operating at reduced capacity. All personnel initiate emergency protocols. Also, in what may be my final philosophical observation, I find it ironic that a gathering intended to celebrate life may end in collective suffocation. How poetically tragic. The reception dissolved into controlled chaos. Concordant officials rushed to emergency stations, while the mining representatives, more accustomed to crisis situations, quickly organized themselves into support teams. Wren's administrative training kicked in. All visitors to Emergency Shelter Alpha, he announced, his voice cutting through the noise. Station personnel to assigned emergency stations. This is not a drill. As the crowd began to move, Wren caught Cathera's eye across the room. A silent communication passed between them, the kind of wordless understanding he had once shared with Alan during crisis situations. With a slight nod, Cathera gathered her delegation and directed them toward the emergency shelter. Wren made his way to the central control hub, where engineering teams were already frantically working to identify the source of the failure. Report, he demanded, slipping into the command chair. Chief Engineer Tala looked up from her console, her face grim. It's bad. Administrator, the primary oxygen recyclers have completely failed, and the backups are only operating at 40% capacity. We've got maybe 3 hours of breathable air at current consumption rates. Cause? Unknown. The systems were fully operational during pre-reception checks. It's like they just decided to stop working. The door to the control hub hissed open, and Cathera entered, her movements purposeful. Delegate Cathera, you should be in the emergency shelter, Wren said automatically. My technical expertise may be of use, she replied, moving to an unused terminal. May I? Wren hesitated, then nodded. Any help is welcome at this point. Cathera's fingers moved across the interface with the same practiced ease she had demonstrated during the earlier malfunction. The failure is not mechanical, she announced after a moment. The recyclers are receiving incorrect commands from the central computer. A software malfunction, Tala asked. Or deliberate sabotage, Cathera suggested. These command patterns are not random. They are structured to appear as system degradation, while actually inducing catastrophic failure. Wren moved to look over her shoulder, close enough to catch a faint scent that sent a jolt through him, the same herbal fragrance Elan had always worn. His mind reeled even as he forced himself to focus on the crisis at hand. Can you bypass it? He asked. Possibly. Cathera's fingers continued their dance across the interface. But whoever designed this protocol anticipated standard concordant security measures. I need to access the quantum encryption module directly. That's in the server room, Tala said. Sector 5, where the air is running out fastest. I'll go, Wren said immediately. The administrator's override will give me access. You'll need technical expertise, Cathera countered. I will accompany you. Delegate Cathera, with all due respect, your safety is not your primary concern at the moment, she interrupted. The survival of this station is. I possess the necessary skills to modify the encryption module. Ilan's memories include detailed knowledge of concordate systems. The room fell silent at her casual reference to Ilan. Ren saw Tala and the other engineers exchange confused glances. Fine, Ren conceded. Tala, continue working on restoring backup systems. We'll handle the server room. As they made their way through the station's corridors, Ren and Kathera donned emergency breathing masks, a precaution against the thinning air in the affected sectors. The normally bustling station was eerily quiet, most personnel having retreated to secure areas with stable environmental systems. You mentioned sabotage, Ren said as they walked. Do you think someone deliberately targeted the reception? It is a logical conclusion, Kathera replied. The timing is too convenient to be coincidental. The question is whether the target was the Veltar delegation specifically or the diplomatic proceedings in general. Who would benefit from disrupting concordant Veltar relations? Several factions. The Tyrellian hegemony has expressed concern about our potential alliance. Certain mining consortiums fear Veltar competition in resource extraction. Even elements within the concordant military establishment view our technological capabilities as a potential threat. They reached the server room door, a reinforced barrier designed to protect the station's vital computing systems. Ren placed his hand on the biometric scanner, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, rows of quantum processing units hummed with energy, their status lights blinking in complex patterns. The air was noticeably thinner here, and Ren found himself breathing more deeply through his mask. The encryption module is this way, he said, leading Kathera to a secured terminal at the far end of the room. As Kathera began working on the terminal, Ren kept watch at the door, a nagging sense of unease growing within him. How did you know about the sabotage so quickly? He asked suddenly. You identified the problem before our own engineers. Kathera's fingers paused momentarily on the interface. Ilan encountered a similar attack pattern during the Melidian conflict, a Tyrellian infiltration technique designed to cripple concordant vessels before boarding. So you think the Tyrellians are behind this? Not necessarily. The technique could have been acquired by other factions. The pattern is effective precisely because it mimics system degradation. Kathera resumed her work, her neural patterns glowing more intensely with concentration. I need your administrative override for the final sequence. Ren moved to the terminal and entered his authorization code. The screen flashed, then displayed a complex grid of quantum encryption keys. There, Kathera said, pointing to a sequence that pulsed with an irregular rhythm. That is the intrusion point. If we can isolate it and replace it with a stable key. Her fingers moved with blurring speed, manipulating the virtual construct. Suddenly, the terminal emitted a high-pitched whine, and the encryption grid collapsed into a single point of light. What happened? Ren demanded. The saboteur anticipated our countermeasures, Kathera said grimly. They've initiated a full system purge. If it completes, all station functions will cease, including life support and structural integrity fields. How long do we have? Minutes. Kathera's expression hardened with determination. There is another approach, but it requires direct neural interface with the system. Veltar can establish such connections, but the process is intimate. Do whatever you need to do, Ren said without hesitation. Just save the station. Kathera nodded, then placed both hands flat against the terminal's surface. The neural patterns on her skin flared with sudden intensity, and she closed her eyes in concentration. For a long moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the terminal's display began to shift, the code restructuring itself under some invisible influence. Status lights throughout the server room flickered rapidly, then stabilized into a steady green glow. Over the station's communication system, Tala's voice rang out. Environmental systems restoring. Oxygen recyclers coming back online. Whatever you did in there, it worked. Kathera opened her eyes and withdrew her hands from the terminal. The neural patterns on her skin dimmed to their normal luminescence, but Ren noticed a faint tremor in her movements. "Are you all right?" he asked, stepping closer. The interface was more demanding than anticipated, she admitted. The sabotage protocol was extremely sophisticated, not Tyrellian. The coding structure suggests Melidian origin. Melidian, but they've been isolationists since the conflict ended. Apparently not as isolated as the Concordat believes. Cathara straightened, visibly gathering her strength. We should return to the control hub. There may be additional security concerns to address. As they made their way back through the station, the emergency lighting gradually shifted to standard illumination, and the thinness of the air began to dissipate as the recyclers resumed their function. "You saved everyone," Ren said quietly. "Thank you." "It was necessary," Cathara replied. "And it is what Elan would have done." The simple statement hung between them, weighted with implications neither was ready to fully explore. Back in the control hub, organized chaos had given way to methodical recovery procedures. Tala was directing teams to verify system integrity throughout the station, while security personnel reviewed access logs to identify potential saboteurs. "Administrator," Tala called as Ren and Cathara entered. The system purge was halted just in time. Another 30 seconds and we'd have lost everything. Delegate Cathara's intervention was crucial, Ren acknowledged. "Has security found anything?" "Nothing conclusive yet, but there's something odd." Tala pulled up a display showing access logs. The initial system commands that triggered the failure came from your office, Administrator. Ren felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "That's impossible. I was at the reception the entire time." "Someone used your authorization codes," Tala said grimly. "The logs are clear." All eyes in the control hub turned to Ren, suspicion beginning to cloud their expressions. "I did not sabotage my own station," Ren stated firmly. "My codes must have been compromised." "Or someone with access to your office used the terminal there," Cathara suggested. "Is there anyone who regularly enters your workspace?" Ren considered. "Just the maintenance staff. And they don't have the technical expertise for something like this." "The cleaning drone," Cathara said suddenly. "It could have been reprogrammed to access your terminal." Tala's eyes widened. "That's actually possible. The drones have basic interface capabilities for updating their cleaning routines." "Check the drone's activity log," Ren ordered. Tala accessed another system, bringing up the maintenance records. "You're right. The office cleaning drone accessed your terminal approximately 20 minutes before the reception began. It was scheduled for a routine cleaning, but the access duration is much longer than standard protocols allow. Can you trace who reprogrammed it?" "Working on it." Tala's fingers flew across her console. "The command came from a personal communication device registered to Mining Consortium Representative Dovin." "Dovin?" Ren frowned. "He's been vocal against expanding Veltar presence in the sector, but sabotage seems extreme. His consortium has exclusive mining rights to 3 systems that would become open to Veltar operations under the proposed agreement." Cathara noted. "The financial implications would be significant." "Security team to detain Representative Dovin for questioning," Ren ordered into his communicator. "Full diplomatic protocols to be observed." As the crisis response continued around them, Cathara moved closer to Ren, speaking in a low voice that only he could hear. "There is another matter we must discuss, privately." Ren studied her face, noting the unusual intensity in her amber eyes. "My office, 1 hour." She nodded once, then rejoined her delegation, who had been escorted to the control hub after the all-clear was given. The hour that followed was filled with security procedures, diplomatic reassurances, and administrative damage control. Representative Dovin was found in his guest quarters, seemingly preparing to depart the station ahead of schedule. When confronted with the evidence, he denied involvement but was held for further investigation. By the time Ren finally made it back to his office, exhaustion had settled deep in his bones. The day's events, from the diplomatic reception to the sabotage attempt to Cathera's incredible intervention, had drained him completely. He had barely settled into his chair when the door chimed, announcing Cathera's arrival. "Enter," he called, straightening despite his fatigue. Cathera stepped inside, still wearing her formal attire, though it seemed to have lost some of its earlier luster. The neural patterns on her visible skin pulsed with a slower rhythm than before. "You wish to speak privately," Ren prompted when she remained silent. "Yes." Cathera moved further into the room, her movements less fluid than usual. "The direct neural interface with your station's systems revealed something unexpected. A hidden data packet, encoded within the sabotage protocol. It was not merely an attempt to disrupt the diplomatic proceedings." "What was it?" "A targeted assassination attempt." Cathera's eyes met his. "Against me specifically." Ren felt his exhaustion evaporate. "Why you? If they wanted to disrupt the negotiations, any of the Veltar delegation would have served. Not if the motivation was personal rather than political." Cathera hesitated, then reached for the collar of her formal attire. She pressed a sequence of points along its edge, and the material parted, revealing more of her neck and upper chest. There, just below her collarbone, was a neural pattern different from the others, darker, more intricate, forming a distinctive spiral pattern that Ren recognized immediately. "Elan's birthmark," he whispered. "The spiral nebula." Cathera nodded. "Not a birthmark in my case, but a neural manifestation of a core memory, one central to Elan's identity. It appeared after the Cathera ritual was complete." She let the material close again, concealing the pattern. "Only someone who knew Elan intimately would recognize its significance." "You think someone targeted you because of Elan? That doesn't make sense. She died 3 years ago in a conflict that's long resolved." "Perhaps not as resolved as it appears." Cathera moved to the viewport, looking out at the red dust swirling across the moon's surface. The sabotage code was Melidian in origin, but the targeting protocol was specifically designed to identify and eliminate Veltar neural patterns, matching Elan's consciousness signature. Ren's mind raced. "That's incredibly specific. Who would even know about the Cathera ritual, let alone that Elan's consciousness was preserved? Someone who was aware of our meeting on Proxima. Someone who knew of our discussion about consciousness transference." Cathera turned back to face him. "Someone who feared what Elan might remember." A cold realization dawned on Ren. "You think Elan's death wasn't an accident? That her ship wasn't just caught in crossfire? The memories are fragmented, but in my neural interfacing with the station systems, certain connections became clearer. Elan had discovered something during her survey mission, something concerning illegal weapons testing in the Melidian sector. She was attempting to report it when her ship was attacked." "By whom?" "That remains unclear. The final memories before her death are chaotic, distorted by fear and pain." Cathera's expression tightened. "But someone clearly believes that her knowledge, now contained within me, remains a threat." Ren sank back into his chair, the implications overwhelming him. So, the sabotage wasn't just about the negotiations. It was about silencing Elan once and for all. "Yes, and they will try again." Cathera's voice hardened. "Which is why I must ask something of you, Administrator Ren, something that goes beyond diplomatic protocols or official duties." "What?" "Join me in the Cathera ritual." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and inevitable at the same time. "What are you talking about?" Ren finally managed. "The Cathera ritual can be performed between willing participants," Cathera explained. "Your consciousness could be partially transferred to a Veltar host, preserving your knowledge, your memories, your essence." "You want to copy me into another Veltar?" "Not copy. Transfer aspects of your consciousness into a shared space. You would remain you, But part of you would also exist within the collective. Cathera stepped closer. It would protect Elan's memories. If those seeking to silence her succeed in eliminating me, her consciousness would live on through your connection to the collective. Ren stood abruptly, moving away from Cathera. This is insane. You're asking me to… what? Upload my mind into some alien hive consciousness? It is not a hive mind. Each consciousness remains distinct, even as they share a collective space. Cathera's voice softened. And there would be another benefit. You would be able to access Elan's memories directly, to experience her thoughts, her feelings, her final moments. The temptation was like a physical pull, to connect with Elan again, even in this strange, impossible way. To know for certain what had happened to her, to feel her presence once more. But the cost. I would have to leave the station, leave my life here, Ren said, already knowing the answer. Yes. The ritual requires specific conditions only available on Veltar homeworlds. And afterward, you would need to remain in proximity to the collective to maintain the connection. Cathera paused. It is not a decision to be made lightly or quickly. I ask only that you consider it. Ren looked around his office, the stack of administrative forms, the synthetic vanilla-scented beverage cooling on his desk, the viewport showing the dusty moon he had called home for 3 years. A life built on the foundation of loss, structured to keep grief at bay. How long do I have to decide? The Veltar delegation departs in 3 days. I must return with them. Cathera moved toward the door. Consider carefully, Administrator Ren, not just what you might gain, but what purpose it would serve. Elan's memories may hold the key to preventing further conflict, to bringing justice for her death. With that, she left, the door hissing shut behind her, and leaving Ren alone with an impossible choice. The next 3 days were a blur of activity. The diplomatic proceedings continued despite the sabotage attempt, with security measures dramatically increased. Representative Dovin remained in custody, though he continued to deny direct involvement in the plot. Forensic analysis of his communication device revealed connections to Melodian information brokers, but nothing conclusive enough to prove he had ordered the attack, rather than simply being used as an unwitting access point. Throughout it all, Ren performed his duties with mechanical precision, his mind perpetually distracted by Cathera's offer. The prospect of connecting with Elan again, of preserving her memories, and perhaps finding justice for her death, was powerfully tempting. But the cost of leaving behind his life, his identity as he knew it, was equally daunting. On the evening before the Veltar delegation's scheduled departure, Ren found himself once again on the observation deck, watching the auroras dance across the gas giant's atmosphere. The familiar sight that had once brought him comfort now seemed to taunt him with memories of what he had lost and might never reclaim. I thought I might find you here. Ren didn't need to turn to recognize Dr. Marks's voice. Come to check on my mental state, Doctor. Something like that. Marks moved to stand beside him at the viewport. You've been distracted since the Veltar arrived. More than usual. I mean, it's been a busy few days. Marks studied him with clinical precision. You know, in my professional opinion, you've been hiding in bureaucracy for too long. Ren, using administrative forms as a shield against feeling anything real. Ren gave a short, humorless laugh. Are we having a therapy session now? If we were, I'd point out that grief doesn't end just because you bury it under paperwork. Marks turned to face the auroras. I knew Elan. You know, not well. But we had a few conversations during her time here. She would have hated seeing you like this. Like what? Haunting this station like a ghost. Going through the motions of living without actually engaging with life. Marks's voice softened. She was so vibrant, so present in every moment. The complete opposite of bureaucratic detachment. Ren felt a familiar ache in his chest. What's your point, Doctor? My point is that sometimes the universe offers us strange second chances. Marx glanced at him meaningfully. I've seen how you look at Delegate Cathera, not with diplomatic interest or professional courtesy, but like you're seeing a ghost. Ren stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Marx raised an eyebrow. The Veltar are known for their consciousness transference rituals. It's not a secret, just not widely discussed in concordant space. How do you know about that? I'm a doctor. Comparative xenobiology is a hobby of mine. Marx shrugged. And I've noticed the way Delegate Cathara watches you when she thinks no one is looking. The familiarity in her gestures when you're nearby. It wasn't hard to put together. Ren remained silent, unsure how to respond to Marx's unexpected insight. She's offered you something, hasn't she? Marx pressed. Some way to connect with whatever part of Elan she carries. She offered me the chance to join in their consciousness transference ritual. Ren admitted finally. To preserve Elan's memories and to experience them directly. Marx nodded slowly. And you're torn. Wouldn't you be? On one hand, it's a chance to be with Elan again, in some form, to find out what really happened to her. Ren ran a hand through his hair in frustration. But, on the other hand, it means leaving everything behind, becoming something I don't understand. Sounds like every major life decision, just with more alien neurology involved, Marx observed dryly. The question isn't whether you'd be giving up your current life, Ren. It's whether your current life is worth holding on to. The blunt assessment hit Ren like a physical blow. Was his life, the endless forms, the administrative routines, the controlled isolation of Viral and Delta Station, truly something he couldn't bear to leave behind? I don't know what to do, he admitted quietly. Yes, you do. Marx placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. You're just afraid to do it. Whatever it is. She stepped back. For what it's worth, I think Elan would want you to choose life. Real, messy, engaged life. Whether that's with her memory or without it. With that, she left him alone with the Auroras and his thoughts. The Veltar ship was scheduled to depart at Oro 900 station time. By Zo 700, Ren had made his decision. He stood in his quarters, looking at the sparse belongings he had accumulated during his 3 years on the station. There wasn't much. A few personal items, some clothing beyond his uniforms, a small collection of physical books that had been Elan's. Everything that mattered could fit in a single bag. But he wouldn't be taking any of it. At Airweight 45, Ren made his way to the docking bay where the Veltar vessel waited. The sleek ship, with its organic-looking hull that seemed to pulse with subtle energy, dominated the bay. Veltar crew members moved efficiently around it, preparing for departure. Cathera stood near the boarding ramp, conversing with her delegation. When she saw Ren approaching, she excused herself and moved to meet him. Administrator Ren, she greeted him formally. Have you come to bid us farewell? I've come to give you my answer, Ren said, his voice steady despite the tumult of emotions within him. Cathera's amber eyes studied him intently. And what have you decided? Ren took a deep breath. I'm declining your offer. A flicker of something, disappointment perhaps, crossed Cathera's alien features. I see. May I ask why? Because it wouldn't be what Elan would want for me, Ren said simply. She believed in living fully in the present, not clinging to the past. Joining the Cathera ritual would be an attempt to hold on to something that's gone, not an embrace of what could be. Cathera was silent for a long moment, her neural patterns pulsing with what seemed like contemplation. Your reasoning is sound, she finally said. Elan's memories suggest she would indeed prioritize your continued growth over preservation of the past. There's something else, Ren continued. I've realized that what I've been doing here, the administrative work, the forms, the protocols, it matters. Not in the way grand diplomatic missions or heroic sacrifices matter, but in the way that keeps the universe functioning day by day. Elan understood that. It's why she was so meticulous about her reports, even as she chafed against bureaucracy. The meaning found in seemingly meaningless tasks. Cathara nodded. A concept the Veltar also value. The collective is maintained through individual dedication to routine functions. Exactly. Ren managed a small smile. So I'm staying. I'll continue my work here, but differently. Not as a shield against grief, but as a contribution to something larger than myself. A worthy choice. Cathara inclined her head respectfully. And what of Elan's memories? The information she died trying to reveal. I've prepared a formal request for a concordant investigation into the circumstances of her death, citing the evidence from the sabotage attempt. Ren handed Cathara a data chip. This contains all the relevant information. I'm hoping the Veltar Conclave will add their support to the inquiry. We will. Cathara accepted the chip. Justice for Elan serves both our people's interests. A comfortable silence fell between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Will I see you again? Ren finally asked. It is likely. The negotiations between our peoples will continue, and my knowledge of concordant systems makes me a valuable envoy. Cathara's expression softened slightly. And Elan's memories of this place, of you, create a certain affinity that the Conclave finds diplomatically useful. Diplomatic usefulness? How romantic, Ren said dryly. To his surprise, Cathara's lips curved in what was unmistakably a smile, perhaps the most human expression he had seen from her. The Veltar do not typically employ sarcasm. Administrator Ren. That response was influenced by Elan's consciousness patterns. She always did have a way with words. Ren acknowledged, his heart aching with a pain that felt cleaner somehow, less jagged than before. The docking bay's announcement system chimed, indicating final boarding for the Veltar vessel. I must go, Cathara said. But before I do, she reached into a pocket of her formal attire and withdrew a small object, a data crystal of unfamiliar design. This contains a message. From Elan, through me. It is personal, not relevant to the investigation or diplomatic relations. Ren accepted the crystal with slightly trembling fingers. Thank you. Cathara inclined her head once more. Farewell, Administrator Ren, until our paths cross again. As she turned to board her ship, Ren called out, Cathara! When she paused and looked back, he asked, The armor. Will you continue to wear it? Yes, she replied simply. It serves as a bridge between who I was and who I have become, much as your administrative work now serves for you. With that, she boarded the ship, the ramp retracting behind her. Ren moved to the observation window and watched as the docking clamps released and the Veltar vessel glided smoothly out of the bay, its organic hull shimmering as it caught the light of the distant sun. He remained there long after the ship had disappeared from view, the data crystal a solid weight in his palm. Whatever message it contained, Elan's final words to him, filtered through an alien consciousness, could wait. For now, it was enough to know that she existed, in some form, somewhere among the stars, and that he had chosen to continue existing too, not just as a shell of administrative function, but as a fully present being who had loved and lost and chosen to keep living anyway. Ren turned from the viewport and made his way back to his office. There were forms waiting for approval, protocols to be updated after the diplomatic visit, and a station that needed its administrator to be fully present. As he settled into his chair and reached for his tablet, he noticed something different. The perpetual layer of red dust that had always covered his desk was gone, wiped clean by the maintenance drone during his absence. A fresh start, of sorts. Ren smiled and began his work, finding unexpected joy in the familiar routine that kept the wheels of the galaxy turning. In the background, the station's AI chimed in with its usual philosophical commentary. Administrator Wren, I notice you have returned to your duties with renewed vigor. I find myself contemplating the nature of purpose. Is meaning inherent in an action, or is it assigned by the consciousness performing it? Perhaps both simultaneously. Fascinating. For once, Wren didn't tell it to shut up.